Hey folks, welcome back. Episode 192, Two Chaps, Many Cultures on a beautiful Wednesday. And today we actually had another topic set for today, but then I shared a very interesting article by a previous guest that absolutely got blown up. People really related to it. So what better way to kind of shift into the topic of defending your host culture? You're in a country that is not of your birth. You obviously have other people that have opinions on that country that may not be in the country. And how much do you come to that country's defense? We're going to talk about that because I think we've had some experience in that. Stick around. Welcome back. Another day, another dollar, as they say.
Another dollar. All right. Defending my host country. When I saw that article that you mentioned earlier and that we're going to talk about today, a lot of thoughts came up. So that's actually a great topic, and I want to congratulate our, well, not only former guest on this program, but also a former a fellow serial expat, or somebody who's been living outside of his native culture for a long, long time, Mr. Jerry Jones. And he wrote an article, and I have to look up what the exact headline is, which he calls it the little brother syndrome. How expats feel when you badmouth their host country. And the little brother, I didn't immediately click with me, but then after reading the article, it made sense. So, but before we go into this, right, because this is the #1 show on the internet about the culture of business and the business of culture, we want you to let us know, are you in your birth culture right now, or perhaps are you living outside of your native culture? Let us know where you're watching this from. What is your birth culture? What is your host culture right now? Tell us. Let us know. Let everybody else who's watching this know where in the world you are and where you're watching this. And maybe you have been exposed to this train of thought yourself as well. So do you have a big brother or a little brother, Brett?
Yeah, I've got a little brother. Absolutely.
And when people,
and so I kind of missed the reference. I thought when I saw the title, I thought, oh, it's an interesting. I wonder what this is, little brother syndrome, because I've got one. And he was an annoying little shit. No, he wasn't. Actually, he was pretty great. He was a great little brother. We got on famously, but yeah, we shared rooms and things like that. We obviously, I probably went through stages of picking on him as well. But when I read the article, Jerry nailed it. By the way, episode 129, Jerry was a previous guest, as I alluded to. Episode 129, if you want to go and hear Jerry's wonderful insights about his experience expatting around the world. But this was a great...
Is that a verb now, expatting? I love it.
It's now a verb, expatting.
All right.
Or maybe it's expattering. I don't know. But... it really resonated. I thought, well, look, I'm connected to a random number of expats, whether they be clients or whether they be friends and family even, that have pushed their boat away from the shore and perhaps been faced with this phenomenon of hearing certain opinions and maybe created assumptions, some of them to the extent of outright bigotry and ignorance, perpetuated by people that they are connected with upon the culture that they are living in. And I've had the same thing happen here in the US, and I really related to it. A country that we obviously have our issues with and culturally and rightly so, as people who come here.
You have issues with that country, huh? You got issues?
Yeah,
you want to talk to me about those issues?
Yeah.
Okay.
What you going to do about it? What you going to do about it?
So here's what Jerry says, right? So Jerry says if you have whether it's a little brother or any type of sibling, you may have your family infighting. You may have your disagreements or quarrels or any type of conflict within your family. However, the minute somebody outside of that family comes at a family member, your defenses go up. You go, what did you say about my little brother? I get to pick on him, not you, right? And
right.
if I pick on him, it's because of sibling rivalry, love, whatever. However, you are not part of this group of people. And if you're going to badmouth my little brother, you're going to take it up with me as well. And that dynamic, by the way, I have a little brother too, and I will admit to some disagreements, right? Or to incompatibilities. And yet, if you come at my brother, I will come to his defense. And we come to our host country or host culture's defense. I found myself doing that when here's how this comes full circle. When I first moved to the United States, there was a certain administration in power back in the early 2000s that wasn't very popular in Europe. And my little brother said, oh, so you're moving to, and he called it bush country. Why would you do that? So my little brother badmouthed the country that I was moving into because of his preconceptions about what the US are. And towards my brother, I became defensive of the United States, even though I may have agreed with him to a certain degree with his assessment of that particular political trend at that time. However, you don't get to say that because I choose to live here, right? And not for the reasons you might think I live here.
Right. And I think another part of Jerry's wonderful insights, and you got to read it. We're going to put a link in the chat here. Everybody's got to read it. I think even if you're not an expat, I think in this globally connected world, there's probably a good chance that we know somebody who's pushed their boat off the shore and is now living overseas. So it might just give pause to people, even if you haven't been an expat, even if you just know one, before you kind of bring your opinions and stereotypes of the country. But Jerry made a really insightful point, and this is why we really enjoyed having him on as a guest, in his humility, saying that basically this is my experience, and what this has taught me as I've traveled the world is that it's made me very curious and humble in terms of what I don't know. And every day is a learning. Every experience is an opportunity to broaden your horizons. And we've just chosen to do that as people who have kind of lived outside of the country. It's not to say that you can't do it inside your country, but at least if you are going to espouse and project your opinions about a particular culture on somebody who has lived it and breathed it for a period of time, where they not only probably may have a certain level of agreement with you about some of those stereotypes and some of those inequities that do exist in a country, but they may also understand and have experienced the wonderful things and the gifts that it offers. And I can say that about the US too. There are days I wake up in this country where I go, why am I here? But many others where I just say, look at the gifts that I've been given by the chance to live away from my country and the learnings and the insights that it's given me.
Right. And I think it's quite timely and appropriate for Jerry to publish this article in this day and age. We're in the second quarter of 2021, a time where, especially in the United States, there has been an increased awareness around xenophobia towards Asian Americans or Asian immigrants to North America. Jerry Jones, the author of the article that we're referencing, and by the way, let's bring up that link here. That's the link, right, Brett?
Yep.
Yeah.
I can paste it in the chat as well.
He spent a long time in China, and he I have an inclination, even though Jerry's not here today with us, I have a suspicion that he's been annoyed by people talking bad about China and venting their unqualified stereotypes of what life in China or in Greater Asia would be like. And while this may come, Jerry's article may come from that very perspective. I think it is true for any type of expatriate scenario. You live in another culture, you live in a host culture that welcomes you to a certain degree, a host culture in which you find your way, in a culture that will pose riddles for you that you will probably never resolve. There will be things that you dislike about it, and you'll continuously wonder, how come it is that way, and why do I feel so weird about this? And yet, once you've been an expatriate somewhere that is a culture that's so different from your own, you'll become its greatest advocate, or at least you'll jump to their defense when somebody else with less experience of that culture is making erroneous claims or is trying to get your approval of their misconceptions. It's nothing's worse than that buddyism, that chumminess of, hey, you know what I'm talking about. You've been there. Yeah. I mean, you could commiserate, or you could corroborate my stupid stereotype. And I'm with Jerry on that. Nope, not on my watch. So
Right.
don't count me in your camp. Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, that happens many times. They just want people who they think are allies, right? It happens. It happens as a white person being around other white people that have very damaging stereotypes about other races and heritages, and because for some reason that you look like them, and that they think you're going to be an ally, and so under their covered voices and their lowered tones, they want some allyship, and quite frankly, they're surprised, if not offended, when you push back at them. And so, yeah, I guess you've got to have, and I know Jerry would agree. Well, I think Jerry would agree, not assuming, but you have to be careful with these conversations, of course, too, right? These are people that, by sheer ignorance and misunderstandings, may have these stereotypes. So it's an opportunity for us to bring them to the font of learning. Right. And say, well, instead of dismissing them out of hand and saying, you idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, which I've been guilty of. Don't worry, I know I've done it. Instead of that, just say, well, that's an interesting viewpoint. I'm interested in how you got to that conclusion. And I'm saying, as somebody who has lived it and breathed it and paid taxes in it, I may have a different opinion, and I may be able to adjust your thinking in that terms. Yeah.
Right. And as I thought about this Big Brother syndrome article that Jerry put together, while I agree with his line of argument, I found it true to be, or I found it to be true beyond this defending your host culture dynamic. I think once you've become more culturally sensitive and more if your acuity to picking up different cultural clues and cues, and becoming more fluent in adjusting your style, so to say, in a foreign culture, will not only make you an advocate or a defense attorney for that culture if it's being attacked by people with less experience. I think it also makes you an advocate for anybody else's stereotypes or against their stereotypes. I'm not sure if I'm articulating myself well enough, and that's why I brought Mark Twain into the picture. I was reminded of this Mark Twain quote. So he used travel as that word, but you could replace that with expatriate experience, so to say. And it is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And many of our people need it sorely on these accounts, right? So travel as the antidote to bigotry, prejudice, narrow-mindedness. Expatriate experience as the extension of travel, as the in-depth, immersive version of travel is something that will make you, will not necessarily inoculate against prejudice and stereotypes. However, it will make you, it will fine-tune your antennas to it, and you will jump to the defenses of those who are wrongfully accused by other people's biases and stereotypes. At least that's been my experience. I don't know how you feel about this.
Well, I have a little issue with that quote.
Okay, go ahead.
It's a great quote, and I think in large part it is, you know, because we work with people from all around the world, and many of them have traveled, and you see an evolution, especially if you have the advantage or the opportunity to work with a family or an individual that starts out in a certain mindset, and we work with them and they go off to do their expat assignment, and they come and you get the chance to keep in touch with them and maybe work with them on their way home. There is an evolution of thought. There's an expansive perception of, oh, now I get it, right? Now some of my stereotypes were quite frankly offended and good, and therefore I'm now going to be, like you say, a better advocate for even not only the culture I lived in, but for the other cultures around the world and the people that come from it. But that doesn't mean, I think, that there are some situations, and I know people personally in this case that have traveled the world, and what it's done for them is confirmed their self-righteous sense of superiority. In fact, they've traveled, I think, with the intention of somehow confirming it. I'm going to go and travel, I'm going to see, and now I'm going to give myself the credibility through the narrow lens of perhaps how I'm experiencing the travel. So if you do travel and you come with a certain perception and bias, then are you not predetermined to only look for the things that confirm your bias?
All right, I hear you.
You see what I mean? Like, and it has, and it's a lot. It's rarer than the other side of the coin. But I do know a couple of people where that's been the case, where they said, "Oh, well, I've been there and I've seen this particular. I've seen an example, and it's usually anecdotal, an example of the bad stereotypes I'm talking about, because they haven't got off the damn bus and actually gone into the backwoods and sat down and broken bread with these people."
Okay, so then the Twain quote is for you problematic because it limits it to travel, the limited exposure that travel gives us. So if we replace the word travel with expatriate experience or extended immersive
expatting, you won't use my new word, will you? Expatting.
Right. So expatting is the antidote then, or at least it will be a much more powerful means to lower your, or to remove some of those preconceptions, right? So I see where you're going with this. Yeah, and maybe the word expatriate was not, or the verb expatting wasn't as common back in Mark Twain's time.
No, probably not. Probably not. No, there probably weren't a lot of people doing it like in those forms. No, but I think in large part, yes, there are many people that have traveled and taken, you know, I know people that have never left their home except for travel, and they've done it extensively, and they've done it in a way that is done in an open-minded intention, so that I'm going to go to these places not just to kind of buy the souvenirs and to take the Instagram pictures, but to really kind of experience the culture and get some insights into the truth behind the veil of what we often don't see through when we're looking at it through history books and things like that. Because of course history is written by the victors. So when you're visiting many places that have been on the kind of the rough end of colonialism and things like that, you kind of miss the underlying beauty of the people in the country.
All right, then this brings us even further away from Jerry's article, and into a book that I received yesterday. You can see it behind me on the bookshelf.
Yes, I've got to get me one of those. That looked like an interesting book. Yeah.
Anthony Bourdain, I call him the patron saint of interculturalists.
Where's your candle, by the way?
Huh?
Where's your candle?
Okay. I have a candle, but that is for something else. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Now that you brought this up, you started it. You started it. Hang on. The candle is for
that's Prince.
Gentleman.
I'm sorry, it's Prince.
Who died 5 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So
that's Prince.
Weaving that in, the purple one.
I thought I saw an Anthony Bourdain one, but I think that's
And maybe there is one. Hey, dear audience, if you're thinking about a gift, a thoughtful gift for me, any Anthony Bourdain paraphernalia and devotionalia, I'm your recipient for that, right?
Nice,
So I
nice.
would not reject that at all. However, bring it back to Tony, who in one of his episodes said, when you're abroad, when you're traveling, don't eat and drink in the hotel. Eat and drink, or find out where the people who work in the hotel go to be there eating and drinking, and then go there. So my plea to all of you will be, if once you're back to the traveling mode, once you feel safe to travel again, whether you're vaccinated or whether we're finding other ways to be safe in our travels, and I see it slowly ramping up again, go to those uncharted territories. Don't go where your photos or your whatever travel guide you're using is sending you. Don't go to where the souvenirs are. Go off the track, go off the beaten path, and explore for yourself, and have an opinion based on immersion, not on hearsay.
Yeah, absolutely. Great topic. I've got to thank Jerry again, and maybe we should have him back to talk about some more topics, because it was a what we call a bottler of a piece. A bottler. That's high praise in Australian, by the way.
You'll have to unpack that for me.
I don't know what it means. I just say it. I come from the culture. I'm not explain. I'm here to explain it.
Oh,
it was a bottler of a piece, and it was very highly read and respected, and received in the, and it really triggered. I mean, and I'm talking about private groups of LinkedIn and Facebook here, where it really triggered some great reflections of people and their experiences with others imposing their opinions on the place that they live and their experience. So thank you, Jerry, with high praise. And again, the link is there. Let's bring it back up. Maybe we've got to find our banners. There it is. That's the link, but it is in the chat. As we encourage you to be in the chat as well, put where you are from and what your opinion of this, and have you experienced this, and how have you handled it with loved ones, friends, and others that have cast their opinion on where you live. We would highly appreciate it.
Yes, indeed, yeah, very
absolutely.
much so. We would also appreciate it if you put this on your calendar. Next week, Wednesday, a week from now, well, at a different time, but at 11 a.m. Central, which is 12 noon East Coast, which is 1800 hour Central Europe, which is, what is that, 9 a.m. West Coast. Join us in the clubhouse. In the clubhouse. I mean, I'm not sure why I'm falling into a faux German accent here. Here's a link: bit.ly/ch_GM. GM stands for Global Mobility. We will be talking about how cultural competence connects to all the aspects of global employee mobility, to expatriate life, to expatting. And we will connect those dots for you, and it'll be an open forum conversation. We hope to hear many of you. I say hear because we won't see you. That's what Clubhouse is about. I hope to hear many of you and engage with many of you next week. So make sure that's on your calendar. If you don't have Clubhouse yet, because it's such an exclusive circle, which it's not, just send us a message and we'll get you hooked up with an invite. It's not that hard. Yeah. That's all, and light a candle for Prince. That's all I have to say for you today, right? That's really at the core of my being today. All right.
Absolutely. Sorry, I messed that up. Okay, well, great. That's another episode. 191, was it? 191.
192.
Many cultures. No, 192. See,
I believe so. I'm losing.
I'm getting behind myself. Episode 192, Two Chaps, Many Cultures, the #1 show on the business of culture and the culture of business. Another one in the can. We will see you next episode. See you, pal.
Ciao for now.